Once you're done with this lecture, you should know how you can tell purely just by looking at the JSON data that is sent in the post request from Dialogflow to the external webhook URL, whether all parameter slots have been filled for this particular intent, only by looking at the JSON data. In the last lecture, we finished configuring the book car's intent and learned a bunch of things such as prompts, parameters, their values, annotations, and so on. Now we're ready to configure the book rooms intent. At this point, we are pros for this, so we can go through this pretty fast. I won't spend as much time as I did in the last few lectures. Let's specify a bunch of user expressions that will invoke book rooms. Can you reserve a room for me? I need a hotel room for tomorrow. Here we have tomorrow, which is a date. Dialogflow identifies this as an entity and automatically adds an annotation for it. It's a system entity or a built-in entity that is the at sys.date. That's also added in the table below. Remember, the more user expressions you add, the smarter your bot will be because the more it can understand. Let's look at this one though. Reserve a deluxe room in Chicago tomorrow. This one user expression has three different annotations for three different entities. The first is the rooms entity. Deluxe is a room type, and Dialogflow has identified this as an entity that we as developers defined earlier on in this section. Chicago is a city, and Dialogflow automatically annotates it as a geo-city entity. If you used a country name instead of a city name, that's a different system entity. Or if you have city states like Singapore, that can be accommodated with a different system entity. You can try all of these and see how they work. This GeoCity parameter was one which we hadn't defined in book cards, which I had left as practice for you. You now know how you can set it up. Very straightforward. This expression also contains a reference to a relative date tomorrow. This has been correctly annotated as the date system entity. In addition to relative dates, Dialogflow also understands explicit specific dates. I need a double room in Mumbai on October 10th. It will automatically assume October 10th of this year. Add in a bunch of expressions of your choice. I'm just going to put a few in here. Will you reserve a hotel for me? Make a hotel reservation for Tuesday. I want a queen room on Monday in Kochi, and so on. It also helps to put in a bunch of expressions which do not contain any parameter values, such as can you book me a hotel? I need to reserve a room for me, please, and so on. Once you're done exhausting your imagination of how your customer might interact with your chatbot, at the bottom you can look at the parameter table and notice that there are three required parameters for this particular intent. Three slots which have to be filled. We'll mark all of them required because we do need date information, room type information, and city information before we can reserve a room. It's now time for us to define prompts to ensure that the required information that we need can be elicited. In order to get the date information, the date on which you want your room booking, we'll say, when do you need the room? Or when is the reservation for? Remember, you can specify more than one prompt. Click on close and go ahead and define the prompts to get the type of room that the user wants. What kind of room would you like? Please pick a room type. You can also specify the kind of rooms that you have available. You can say, I can offer you a queen, a double, a single, and so on. The prompts for the city where you want to make the room reservation can be something like, please give us a location, or what city should I make the reservation in, or anything. Give your Dialogflow chatbot a number of choices. You can also change the priority in which you want the prompts to appear. What information do you want first? If you want the city information first, click on the arrow on the right and then drag it up. Once you have your parameter slot set up in the right order, you can specify the text response. Done. I've booked you a dollar room in dollar city for dollar date. Make sure you confirm to the user where he had his booking, for what day, and the kind of room that he has reserved. Click on save, and we are now ready to test this bot. We'll use this expression which has all parameter values. Can you book a single room for me in LA for Tuesday? Notice that dialog flow identifies that this has to be mapped to the BookRooms intent, that is correct, and the booking is complete because all parameter slots have been filled. We have a single room, the city is LA, and the date is the 10th of October 2017. Click on Show JSON to see the JSON data that we send along to the webhook URL if we were to actually make a post request. We're not doing that here. Let's see what information this post data contains. Notice here that there is a parameters key which contains a JSON object with the date, geocity, and rooms information. In order to ensure that you have all the parameters that you need to fulfill the request, you can always check this part of the JSON object. Notice also that there is a key called action incomplete, which is set to false here. This is false because we have all the required parameter values in order to fulfill this action. If you were to look at this JSON response in an in-between state when we just have the values for a few of the required parameters, action incomplete would be true. So only by looking at the JSON data that is going to be sent via the post request to the webhook URL, you can tell whether parameter slots have been filled. This you can do in two ways. By looking at the parameters key, which has a JSON object associated with it. Within the JSON object, the keys are the parameter names and the corresponding value is also available. Or you can look at the action incomplete key. This will be false when all the parameter slots are filled and will be true otherwise.